Rich Loader. I teach 5th and 6th grade at GT School of Innovation in a small rural town of Georgetown, California.
And I'm 6th grade teacher Annie Brown. We are here to present our class's project titled Force of Nature, Preventing Catastrophic Fire in California. Wildfires have been ramping up in California for years, and they have become our community and our students' #1 concern. Each year, unpredictable forest fires cause major safety concerns and loss of wildlife habitat.
The past 4 or 5 years, we've had multiple forest fires, such as the King Fire, that have displaced our students and communities. Because of these issues is so relevant and authentic to the students' experience, we knew it would engage our kids, but also help them better understand the NGSS science standards and our local community.
Our goal was for students to develop significant knowledge and skills in our science standards, specifically causes and responses to natural disasters. They engaged in learning this content through reading and responding to informational texts, conducting research, interviewing experts, and participating in field experiences. This approach allowed us to incorporate our science standard, our reading informational and writing standards, as well as speaking and listening. Students used their research to produce their final recommendations in writing and also to present to local stakeholders, which gave them significant practice with both oral and written communication. Our entry events incorporated local experts on fire prevention. The first was a researcher from Blodgett Research Station asking for our help in forest management, specifically using prescribed burns, goats, logging, or uncontrolled growth where there is no management whatsoever.
The second was an interview with the leader of our local Fire Safe Council, Ray Griffith, and Jenna Angus from the Garden Valley Fire Department, who presented a call to action. The Georgetown Fire Safe Council requested our school community to set up and head the effort to prevent our homes from being burned down during the next wildfire season.
These entry events led to our Knows and Need to Knows for the project. In the midst of this project, the Camp Fire burned down the entire town of Paradise. It was the deadliest wildfire in the United States in a century. Paradise lies only 100 miles to the north and has a very similar elevation and climate to Georgetown, California. Our students made a direct connection between the work they were doing and what occurred in Paradise. An organic discussion of the scope of the project arose. Students suggested that not only should they present about prevention, but also there should be presentations on what to do to protect themselves if they were caught in a fire.
New questions such as, what can we do now to protect ourselves from forest fires? And what long-term decisions can we make to stop their issues in the future? Became the subtext of our new driving questions. What is the best method for managing our forests to prevent catastrophic wildfires? And how can we protect ourselves from catastrophic wildfires if and when they occur? In the end, our two classes were able to collaborate and teach each other based on their findings. These driving questions incorporated our focus on science standards, natural disasters, as well as our literacy standards, because students had to make recommendations based on their research.
After the driving question, what is the best method for managing our forests to prevent catastrophic wildfires, and how can we protect ourselves from catastrophic wildfires if and when they occur, were established, the class determined, with some breadcrumbing, that we would first need to understand why different wildfires are a growing problem in California. The first 4 weeks of the project were spent researching the root cause of this problem. The scaffolding occurred through study trips, presentations by experts in the field, newsletter articles, and information provided by CAL FIRE.
Our 2 study trips in this course of the project were to Blodgett Forest Research Station, part of the UC Berkeley Outreach and Environmental Study Center. This station is approximately 25 miles upcountry from our rural school. The purpose of our visit to Blodgett was to learn current management techniques towards catastrophic fire prevention. UC Berkeley researchers showed our classes around their facilities. Additionally, we had accompanied by a school board member who worked for CAL FIRE. Students learned firsthand what an unhealthy, overgrown forest looked like and how it was susceptible to wildfire. Students learned about forest management techniques such as mastication, of cutting down and mulching small trees, and controlled burns.
The
The
what?
most
Smoke the
powerful
fuel
part of the
and turn
visit
into a
was
smoldering
our
fire.
participation in a controlled burn, which had never been done by a class before.
Yeah.
The students were actually able to watch firefighters use drip torches in order to burn a section of the forest.
Our second trip was to our local lumber mill, where from a catwalk high above the floor, the students were able to observe what happened to many of these trees after wildfires. They were able to meet with registered foresters and loggers who discussed the health of our forests and the effects of these catastrophic wildfires on our forests. They also learned about some modern forest management techniques to reduce the risk of wildfires without damaging the health of the forest. After both of these study trips, students reflected in writing, and we adjusted our knows and need to knows to show their new learning and questions.
During this project, we had quite a few experts in the field come present and speak to our students. These experts included a registered forester, a botanist with the National Park Service, and three firefighters. We prepared students for these guests by discussing correct interview procedures and guidelines. They created questions they believed would be appropriate to the speaker's presentation beforehand following these guidelines.
My students spent the beginning of the project reading and researching as much as they could to get as much information as they could on things such as prescribed fires, logging, selective thinning, the use of goats, PG&E safety precautions, and the use of chemicals. They needed to have a solid background before they could make a choice on which they thought was the best method to preventing catastrophic wildfires in the future. They read, took notes, and discussed many Newsella, ReadWorks, and other articles. Students then wrote individual argumentative papers presenting what they believed to be the best way to prevent catastrophic wildfires. Students were then placed in groups where they had to decide as a group which method they would present to the panel on. Finally, they presented their slideshows at exhibition to a group of experts, teachers, family, and friends.
In my class, the final 4 weeks, the students applied what they learned using the Ready, Set, Go model recommended by CAL FIRE, which is dedicated to the fire protection and stewardship of over 31 million acres of California's privately owned wildland. First, they made their homes ready by creating defensible space around their properties. They identified possible fire hazards, dry grass, bushes, dead trees, low limbs, propane tanks, and then they removed them and educated their families about them. The students used iPads to take before and after pictures of their work. They used these pictures later in their final presentations. They then moved to the Get Set portion of the CAL FIRE project, which means to prepare yourself and your home for the possibility of having to be evacuated. Each student prepared an emergency action plan with their families. This included a designated emergency meeting location outside the fire or hazardous area, several different escape routes from their homes, and they were asked to practice these often with their families, so they were all familiar in case of an emergency. They also had an evacuation plan for their pets and large animals. We also wanted the students to know how to use fire extinguishers and where the gas and electrical shutoffs were to their house, along with packing emergency supply kits and medical kits.
This project empowered students to build background knowledge through reading and research and then use their newly learned information to help prepare their community for fires in the present and also share recommendations for preventing fires in the future. Students had to research, write, revise, and work in groups to make their final presentations to the community.
Hi, my name is Nevaeh. We had a lot of experts speak to our class about fire safety plans. My favorite idea in the fire plans was a fuel break. These are clearings placed around the Georgetown Divide area which keep fire from spreading by reducing vegetation. Fuel breaks can weaken a fire, which buys firefighters time to stop the fire.
We made several adjustments to the students' knows and need to knows based on their learning throughout the project. This really helped us decide where to focus based on the students' needs and wants. We had many informal assessments throughout the project, such as their interview questions, informal check-ins for understanding, graphic organizers, note-taking, journal entries, and quick writes. Bigger assessments included their final written essay, Google slideshow projects, and their presentations to the community and panel of experts. Our students learned so much from interviewing and receiving feedback from field experts. Because students knew their recommendations would be heard by our community and that they needed advice to combat this problem, students felt a sense of urgency that showed through their writing and presentations.
My name is Nick. My class took a study trip to Blodgett Research Station to speak to the experts on forest management and participate in a controlled burn. The study trip helped connect us to our driving question about preventing catastrophic wildfires and shaped my opinion that controlled burning was the most effective method and we should do it more to prevent fires on the Georgetown Divide.
Like many NTN schools, GT School of Innovation has a population of students who struggle with school connectiveness. I believe knowing that they were going to present their findings to make a personal difference in the community and possibly save lives was an immense motivator. Some of the normally reluctant learners revised their presentations several times.
This being our first year with NTN and project-based learning, a lot of learning took place during the course of this project. We recognized the importance of our understanding on our students' understanding. Simply put, we needed to develop strong background knowledge on the topic for ourselves so that we could lead our students and breadcrumb certain ideas. Our knowledge base of the subject had to have a great deal of depth so that we could make it accessible to all students through breadcrumbing and scaffolding. Additionally, getting first-hand experience and guest speakers was also a challenge. The amount of preparation time required to develop the project and get these people here was tremendous. Effective planning requires support, collaboration, and uninterrupted work time. Finally, there was the surprise of our project presentation. We discovered almost too late that the students had a tremendous amount of anxiety about presenting their work. Our assumptive thinking that the students would be engaged with the presentation model of parents and experts was just that, an assumption. This stress on their part led to a rescheduling of the presentation dates and times. Next time, we would scaffold ample time for students to practice their presentations and give and receive more feedback in order to make them even more comfortable before their final presentations.
Hi, my name is Shaylin, and the most challenging part of getting ready for the exhibition was the fear of knowing our team might mess up. Even though we practiced answering the questions the experts and panel might ask us, and the stress of standing in front of people and presenting was hard. In the end, we did really well. The most powerful thing we taught was about prescribed burns and how they are in preventing fires.
This project had a very positive impact on our students and community. Feedback came in many forms. Jenna Angus also published her feedback as a letter to the editor in her local newspaper. Students were very proud and excited to see them mentioned in the newspaper. As teachers, we also learned a lot, both about our students and implementing PBL, that we will be able to use and take with us in the future.
However, our work on this project is ongoing. Since completing the project, we have taken some time to make our own campus more fire safe by working with the California National Park System and the El Dorado chapter of Native Plant Society to help pull invasive Scotch broom in our campus nature area. We have also continued to be in contact with the 6th grade class that was affected by the Paradise Fire in November and hope to go take them the supplies we collected while helping them get a sense of normality again by planting some trees where their school once stood.
Yep.